The key went in, but the door did not move. I turned it hard until my fingers hurt. The metal scraped inside the lock like it was chewing the key. I pushed my shoulder into the wood. The door stayed shut. From the other side, I heard the chain slide into place, slow and calm, as if someone wanted me to hear it. I stepped back into the hall. The light above me flickered and then held steady, weak and yellow. The air smelled like wet paint and cold dust. I tried the key again. It turned. It even clicked. But the door still would not open. It felt like the lock worked and the door refused. I knocked. At first I did it soft, then harder. My knuckles stung. I kept my voice low because I did not want the neighbors to come out. I said his name. I asked if he was there. I heard nothing but the low hum of the building and the soft sound of movement behind the door, like bare feet on wood. My phone showed one bar. I called him anyway. It rang once, then stopped. I called again. This time it went to voicemail. I sent a text. "I am locked out. Open the door." It did not show delivered. I checked the time, past midnight. The hallway felt colder than it should have. I looked down the stairs. The front entrance of the building stood open a crack. The wind made it tap against the frame. I had not noticed it before. It meant anyone could come in. I leaned down and looked at the lock. It was the same lock he had installed last week. He said the old one was unsafe. He said it was for both of us. He made me give him my key for 1 hour while he worked. When he gave it back, it looked the same, but it felt slightly rough near the teeth. I had told myself it was nothing. I tried the handle again. It did not even shake. It felt dead, like the door had grown into the frame. I pressed my ear to the wood. I heard his breathing. It was close, slow, and controlled. He was standing right there. I whispered, "Please, I need to get in." He did not answer, but the breathing changed. It sounded like a smile. I backed away. My skin crawled. This was not a mistake. This was not him asleep. He wanted me out here. I thought of the last time he threatened me. He stood in the kitchen and tapped the lease with one finger. He said he could end it any time. He said I should remember that the door was his and the locks were his and the rules were his. He said it like a joke, but he did not laugh. I went down the hall to the small window by the stairs and looked out into the street. There were no cars, no people. The streetlight outside blinked on and off like a slow warning. I told myself to go downstairs and wait outside. But then I heard the front entrance move again, that soft tapping sound, like someone testing it. I returned to my door fast. I knocked again, harder than before. I said his name loud. I told him I would call the police. The breathing stopped. For a moment there was silence. Then his voice came through the wood. It was quiet. It was close. It felt like he pressed his mouth to the door. "You are not on the lease anymore," he said. My stomach turned. I was on the lease. I had signed it. I had the copy in my room. He spoke again, still calm. "You are not allowed inside." I reached for my phone. My hands shook. I tried to turn on the flashlight, but the screen froze for a second, then went dark. When it came back, the battery had dropped to 1%. I had charged it before I left earlier. I remembered plugging it in. I remembered the cable. I remembered him standing near the outlet, watching me, asking where I was going tonight. The chain inside the door rattled again. I heard the deadbolt slide, not to open, but to lock deeper. I did not even know it could do that. The handle became harder, as if it tightened in my hand. Then something slid under the door and stopped against my shoe. A folded paper. I stared at it for a second, then picked it up. My name was written on the front in his neat handwriting. I unfolded it. Inside was a photo of my key on a table, cut clean down the middle, and beneath it a single line. "New locks, new rules. You can sleep outside." I stood with that note in my hand while the hallway door downstairs tapped again. I stopped knocking. I listened. The sound came from the entrance, not from my flat. Someone pushed it open a little, then let it fall back like they did not want to come in yet. I backed up to my door and kept my eyes on the stairs. My phone died in my palm. The hallway light dimmed for a second. Then I heard my flat door unlock from the inside. The deadbolt slid back with a clean, careful sound. The chain stayed on. He spoke through the gap, calm and exact. "Put the note on the floor and step back," he said. I did it. I stepped back until my shoulders touched the opposite wall. He opened the door just enough to look at me through the chain. His face stayed half hidden. His eyes looked clear and awake, like he had waited all night. "You could have handled this like an adult," he said. "You do not bang on my door." My door, I thought. I swallowed and asked to come in. He stared at me for a long time. Then he unhooked the chain and stepped aside. I walked in fast, ready to run to my room and lock myself in. But I stopped after one step. The smell hit me. It was sharp and chemical, like fresh glue and burnt plastic. He had rearranged the entryway. My shoes were gone. My coat was gone. In their place stood a small table I had never seen before. On it sat a white sheet of paper under a clear plastic cover. A pen lay beside it like a tool. He pointed at the paper. "New rules," he said. "Read them, sign." I looked down. The rules were typed. They did not sound like house rules. They sounded like a warning. No guests. No phone calls after 10. No cooking without permission. No shower after 11. No locking internal doors. No moving furniture. No leaving items in shared spaces. No storing bags by the door. No closing windows without asking. At the bottom there was a line for my signature and a date. He had already filled in the date. It was today. I told him I would not sign. He leaned close, so close I smelled his breath. "Then you could leave," he said. "Right now. You already slept outside once." I did not answer. I walked past him. He followed at a slow pace, not rushing, like he knew I had nowhere else to go. I reached my room and grabbed the handle. It did not turn. I tried again. The knob felt loose, like it spun without catching. I looked at him over my shoulder. "You changed my lock," I said. He lifted his hands a little like he was innocent. "Safety upgrade," he said, "for both of us." I knelt and checked the edge of the door. The screws on the knob looked new. The wood around the latch showed fresh marks, as if someone had forced it open and repaired it fast. My skin went cold. He had been inside while I was out. He had been inside while I was locked out. He took a key from his pocket and opened my room. He did not give me a copy. He just held the door for me like a guard. I stepped in. My room looked almost the same, but it felt wrong. My bedspread had been pulled tight. My desk items sat in straight lines. My closet door stood open by a few inches, like someone had checked it and left it that way on purpose. I went to my suitcase under the bed. The zipper was half open. I had closed it. I reached inside and felt the fabric, then the cold shape of something hard. I pulled it out. It was a small black device with a clip, a tiny light on one side. It looked like a microphone or a tracker. My mouth went dry. I turned toward the door. He stood in the hallway watching. His hands rested at his sides. He did not look surprised. "What is this?" I asked. He did not answer right away. He tilted his head like he listened to something far away. Then he looked at the ceiling above my door. I followed his eyes. A new smoke detector sat there. It had not been there before. The plastic looked too clean. The little hole in the front looked too dark. I raised my hand to point, then stopped. I remembered the rules. No phone calls after 10. No locking internal doors. He did not want privacy. He wanted access. I tested one boundary. I stepped to the window and opened it wider. Cold air rushed in. The sound of the street came up, distant and thin. I breathed in once, trying to feel less trapped. He moved fast. He crossed the hall in 3 steps and grabbed the window frame. He slammed it shut so hard the glass rattled. "Do not do that," he said. I stared at him. He spoke again, slower this time, like he practiced it before. I watched his lips. I heard the same calm tone he used through the door last night. "If you make me feel unsafe in my own home," he said, "I will show people what you are, and they will believe me." I sat on the edge of my bed and kept my eyes on the crack under my door. I did not trust the quiet. The flat felt watched, like the walls had ears. The smell of chemicals stayed in my nose. It made my head feel thick, like I had woken up too fast from a deep sleep. I needed the lease. I needed proof that I lived here. I told myself that paper could still protect me, even if he acted like it could not. I moved slow and careful. I did not turn on the main light. I used the screen of my dead phone like it still mattered, then I remembered it was useless. I pulled open my drawer and found my folder. It looked thinner than it should have. The plastic sleeves were there, but the lease copy was gone. I knew I kept it. I remembered holding it on the day we signed. I remembered the table and his pen and his smile. But when I tried to remember the words on the page, my mind slid off them. It was like trying to hold smoke. I checked my laptop. The charger sat in the socket, but the battery showed almost empty. That made no sense. I typed my password twice before it worked. My hands shook. I searched my emails for the lease. I found one message from him from months ago. Subject line was lease final copy. I opened it and saw a PDF. The PDF looked right at first. My name appeared on the first page. The address was correct, but the text felt different, like it had been cleaned and rewritten. I scrolled down to the signature block. His signature sat there bold and sharp. Under it was mine. It looked like mine, but it did not feel like mine. The slant was wrong. The last letter in my surname had a long tail I never wrote. I zoomed in until the lines became rough pixels. The ink strokes looked too smooth, too even, like they had been traced. I stared so long my eyes watered. My stomach tightened as I thought about the note with the photo of my key cut in half like a message. I clicked File Details. I did not know what I expected to find. The last modified date said yesterday. The creator field showed his name. My throat went dry. Yesterday I had been at work all day. He had been home. He had been alone with my room key. I heard a soft sound in the hall, a slow scrape, then a stop, like someone had taken one step and waited. I closed the laptop without shutting it down. I listened. Nothing. But the silence felt planned, like he wanted me to think I imagined it. I could not call anyone. My phone was dead and my charger cable now felt loose in the plug. I tugged it and saw the wire had a clean cut near the end, wrapped in black tape like a quick repair. I did not remember that tape. I did not remember the cut. My hands went cold as I held it up to the light. I went back to the folder and searched deeper. Under the plastic sleeves, I found an extra sheet I had never seen before. It was folded into a tight square. It smelled like the sharp chemical from the entryway. I unfolded it carefully. It was an addendum. The header had the same address. The date was from the week we moved in. The text was short. It said I was not a tenant. It said I was a guest allowed to stay at the landlord's pleasure. It said I agreed to follow any house rules given in writing or spoken out loud. It said I agreed that any violation meant immediate removal without notice. At the bottom were initials next to each line. They were mine. At least they looked like mine, but the pen pressure was wrong. It pressed too hard, like someone tried to make sure it could not be erased. I tried to remember signing anything like this. I could not. I remembered signing one lease, not two. I remembered his voice saying it was standard. I remembered feeling tired that day, more tired than made sense. I turned the page over. There was a second sheet attached with a paper clip. It had one sentence on it, printed in the same clean font. It said I gave consent to audio recording in shared areas for safety. Under that sentence was my full signature again, larger than the one in the PDF, and next to it was a small note in his handwriting. Signed after the first warning. I froze. I had never been given a first warning. I had never been told I was being recorded. And as I stared at that note, I heard his voice from the other side of my door, quiet and steady, like he read from a script. "I told you before," he said. "You signed it, I kept the copy." I did not open my door. I stood still and waited for his footsteps to leave. When the hall finally went quiet, I forced myself to breathe slow. My hands held the addendum so tight the paper bent. My name on that page felt like a trap that had been placed on me in my sleep. I needed someone else to see it. I needed a witness who was not him and not his rules. I opened my laptop again and found a weak signal. I typed a message to Maya first. I wrote, "I need help, please call me." It failed to send. I moved the laptop closer to the window and tried again. This time it sent, but the time stamp looked wrong. It showed it had been sent hours earlier. I checked my message thread with her. My last texts were not mine. They were short and cold. "Do not come here. Stop bothering me. I am fine." There was a final one that made my chest hurt. "If you show up, I will call the police on you." I stared at the screen until the words blurred. I had not written any of that, but they had been sent from my account. The replies from Maya were confused, then worried, then angry. After that, nothing. I checked my chat with Eli. Same thing. Messages that pushed him away. One of them said he made me feel unsafe. That was the exact phrase my flatmate liked to use. I scrolled up and saw a photo I did not remember sending. It was a picture of my bedroom door, taken from the hallway, like someone had stood outside my room and snapped it while I was inside. I heard a soft click in the hall. I shut the laptop and held it to my chest like it could protect me. The click came again, closer this time, then stopped. I did not hear footsteps. It was like he stood outside and listened to my breathing through the wood. When the sound finally faded, I opened the laptop again and went to my email. I searched for sent mail. My sent folder had messages I never wrote. There were apologies for things I did not do. There were promises not to visit certain places. There was one message to my boss saying I had a personal problem and might miss work. It was written in my style, but it was too neat, too careful, like someone had studied me. I did not feel like I was reading my own words. I felt like I was looking at a mask someone wore to speak as me. I remembered how friends stopped coming over in the last months. At first they joked about him being strict. Then they started making excuses. Too busy, too tired, next time. One time Maya did come. She stood in the entryway and went quiet when he walked in. He smiled at her and asked her to take her shoes off. He told her where to stand so she would not scuff the floor. He asked her why she was here so late. His voice stayed calm, but his eyes stayed on her like she was being measured. She left after 10 minutes and never returned. I needed to know if they still believed I was me. I messaged Meyer again using a new draft and I wrote only one thing. "That was not me. Please meet me outside. Do not come up." I hit send and watched the screen until it said delivered. Minutes passed. My heart beat too loud in my ears. Then a reply came. "What did you do to him?" I felt sick. I typed, "What do you mean?" She replied, "He told me you were not well. He said you scared him. He said he had proof. He said to stay away for my safety." My hands shook so hard I made typing errors. I asked her what proof. She did not answer, but she sent a screenshot. It was a message from my number to her number. It had been sent last night while I was locked out in the hallway. It said, "If you come here again, you will regret it." I stared at that time stamp and felt the floor tilt under me. My phone had been dead in my hand, and yet my number had spoken. The pressure in my chest turned into anger. I opened my door fast and stepped into the hall. He stood there already, one arm braced on the wall beside my door as if he had been waiting in that exact spot. His face stayed calm. His eyes looked bright. "You should not be messaging people about our home," he said. I asked him how he sent those texts. I asked him how he changed my lease. I asked him how he got into my accounts. He did not blink. He reached into his pocket and held up my phone. It was my phone. I had left it on my bed. I knew I had. He turned it over so I could see the screen. It was on. It showed my messages. It showed my sent threats. "You lose things when you are stressed," he said. "You forget what you do. That is why I kept records." I took one step back. My skin went cold. He leaned closer, his voice low and smooth like he practiced it in front of a mirror. "You have two choices," he said. "You sign the rules and you stay quiet. or you fight me and everyone learns what you are capable of." He raised the phone to his ear like he was about to make a call. Then he paused and looked straight at me. "And if you run," he said, "I will tell them you ran because you did it." I kept my face still after he held up my phone. I did not grab for it. I did not shout. I watched his hands in the hall behind him. I knew he wanted a scene. I knew he wanted a reason to call someone and say I attacked him. I stepped back into my room and closed the door without locking it because the new rules said I could not. I sat on the floor with my back to the bed and stared at the ceiling. The smoke alarm above my door looked too new. The plastic was too white. The screw heads were clean. It did not match the rest of the flat. I waited until I could not hear him in the hallway. Then I stood on the chair and reached up. My fingers touched the edge of the smoke alarm. It did not feel like a normal one. It felt heavier. It also felt warm, like it had been running. I twisted it gently. It came loose too easily. The wires inside were wrong. A real alarm had two simple wires. This one had a small black box tucked behind it. A thin cable ran from the box into the ceiling hole. The cable disappeared into darkness. I held the alarm close to my face. On the front, near the little vents, there was a pinhole that did not belong there. I tilted it toward the window light. A tiny glass circle reflected back at me. A lens. My stomach tightened so hard I almost gagged. I stared at that lens and felt like it stared back. I thought of every moment in this room. Every time I changed. Every time I sat on my bed and read those fake messages. Every time I whispered to myself that I would be fine. I forced myself to keep moving. I did not rip it down. I did not smash it. I told myself I needed proof more than I needed relief. I checked the black box. There was a slot on the side. I slid my fingernail into it and pulled out a small memory card. It came out smooth, like it had been removed many times. I held it between my fingers and felt it tremble with my pulse. I looked back at the ceiling hole. The thin cable still led upward. I imagined more devices in the flat. I imagined wires behind walls. I imagined him sitting in his room with a screen, watching me from above my own door. I put the memory card in my pocket and lifted the smoke alarm back toward the ceiling. My hands shook. I wanted to throw it across the room. Instead, I fitted it back in place and twisted it until it sat flush like nothing had happened. I climbed down and moved the chair back exactly where it had been. I copied his style. Neat. Silent. No sign. I opened my laptop and searched how to read a memory card. I did not have an adapter. I searched again for hidden cameras and found pictures that looked too much like mine. Smoke alarms with lenses, alarms with heat marks, alarms with a little extra weight. I checked my laptop for new devices on the network. I did not know what I was doing, but I saw a name I did not recognize. It was a string of numbers and letters. It appeared and disappeared every few seconds like it breathed. I clicked on my sent messages again. I stared at the times. Some were sent while I was asleep. Some were sent while I was in the shower. I had believed I was alone in there. Now the air felt dirty around my skin. A sound came from the hall. A soft tap on my door. One tap, then another, slow and even. He did not call my name. He did not ask if I was awake. He just tapped like a metronome. I stayed quiet. The tapping stopped. Then I heard him speak, not loud, not angry, like he spoke into a recorder. "Maintenance check," he said. "Safety device check." My throat went tight. He stood on the other side of my door, and I could picture him looking up at the ceiling above it, like he could see through plastic. The handle turned. My door opened a few inches. He did not step in. He kept his body in the hall, but his eyes went straight to the smoke alarm. He stared at it for a long time. Then his gaze lowered to me. His face stayed calm, almost bored. But his voice sounded careful, like he had said the line before. "Do not touch the smoke alarm again," he said. "You left a fingerprint on the edge. It showed on the feed." I kept my eyes away from the smoke alarm after he spoke about the feed. I nodded like I agreed. I acted like I felt guilty. When he closed my door, I sat still for a long time and listened to his steps. They stopped outside my room. Then they moved away, slow, like he wanted me to count them. I waited until the flat went quiet. Then I pulled the memory card from my pocket and wrapped it in a tissue. I hid it inside the lining of my backpack. I did not trust any drawer. I did not trust any pocket he could search. I told myself one thing again and again. I needed to leave, but I had to leave without giving him a moment to stop me. I could not use my phone. I used my laptop outside the flat. I went to a cafe in the morning and sat where the camera over the door could not see my screen. I logged into a new email account. I wrote to Maya and Eli. I wrote short lines. I said I was safe for now. I said I needed help to move fast. I said do not answer on my old number. I said meet me only outside, never at the flat. They replied within minutes. Their messages looked scared. They believed me now. They said they had felt something wrong about him for months. They said they were sorry they stayed away. They said they would help, but only if we did it quietly. I agreed. Quiet was all I had left. We planned the move like a theft. We chose a storage unit far from the flat. We chose a time when the street was busy, so a van would not stand out. We agreed on hand signals instead of phone calls near the building. We agreed that if he appeared, they would leave at once and I would not chase them. I hated that part, but I understood it. Back in the flat, I acted normal. I followed his rules in front of him. I did not cook. I did not open windows. I kept my voice low. I stayed in my room and read on my laptop like nothing had changed. But I packed a little each night, always under the blanket, always with the sound of music playing soft to cover the rustle. I made my first mistake on the second night. I carried a small trash bag out of my room with bits of tape and a torn cardboard box. I meant to take it to the bin outside. I left it by the entryway for 1 minute while I put on my shoes. When I came back, the bag was gone. I froze. I stood with my shoes half on and listened. No footsteps, no door, nothing. I walked to the kitchen and saw him at the table. The trash bag sat beside his chair like a pet. He looked up and smiled. "You left a mess in shared space," he said. "That is one of the rules." I apologized. My mouth tasted like metal. He held my gaze too long. Then he tied the bag shut with slow, careful fingers, as if he wanted me to know he had touched it. After that, I stopped leaving any sign. I hid flattened boxes under my mattress. I rolled clothes into tight bundles and stuffed them inside my pillowcases. I kept one outfit out at all times so the room looked lived in. I wiped my fingerprints off my door handle even though it made no sense. I did it anyway. The next mistake almost ended everything. I slipped the memory card out of my backpack at the cafe and tried to check it on a public computer. The screen asked for a password to open a folder. The folder name was my room number. I felt my stomach drop. I pulled the card out fast and left. When I returned that evening, he stood in the hall, blocking the path to my room. He held my phone in one hand like it was his. He asked where I went after work. His voice sounded polite, but his eyes looked hard. I told him I went for coffee. He stepped closer and sniffed the air near my collar like he searched for proof. Then he said, "You should not use public computers. They steal data." It was advice, but it sounded like a warning. He moved aside and let me pass. Moving day came 3 mornings later. Maya and Eli arrived in a rented van and parked down the block like we planned. I watched from my window through a gap in the curtain. My hands shook so badly I had to hold my wrists together. I waited for the sound of his door. I waited for him to leave for work, like he always did at the same time. 9 o'clock passed, then 10. The flat stayed quiet, no keys, no shoes, no door. I heard him behind me. I turned and saw my bedroom door open. He leaned on the frame, fully dressed, calm and ready. He looked at my packed backpack on the bed, then back at my face. "I decided to take the day off," he said. "I thought you might need me home." He stood in my doorway like he owned the air in my room. His clothes looked fresh. His hair looked neat. He watched my backpack on the bed and the small stack of folded clothes beside it. I forced my face to stay blank. I said I planned to donate some things. I said I wanted to clear space. He stepped 1 foot into my room. His eyes moved over the floor, the chair, the closet gap. He looked at my hands like he counted what I carried. Then donate later, he said. Today we did a deep clean. I scheduled it. You stayed in your room too much. He walked away without waiting for my answer. I heard him in the kitchen, opening cupboards, moving plates. He made noise on purpose. It sounded like he wanted me to know where he was so I would not move. I waited until his steps went toward the bathroom. Then I moved fast. I lifted the mattress and reached for the flat boxes I hid under it. They were gone. The space under my bed looked too empty. The dust lines on the floor showed something had been pulled out and pushed back in. I checked the closet. My suitcase was not there. My winter coat was not there. The closet smelled like the chemical from the entryway again, stronger than before, like someone sprayed it. I saw fresh scratch marks near the back wall, low to the ground, where the wood had been scraped. My throat tightened. He had searched my hiding places. He had done it calmly. He had done it while I slept or while I sat in cafes thinking I had time. I pulled open my desk drawer and found my folder again. The addendum pages were gone. The folder held only old bills and an empty plastic sleeve. He had left the folder so I would not notice right away. I heard the water run in the bathroom. Then it stopped. I froze, listening for his steps. They did not come yet, so I kept moving. I went to my backpack. I unzipped the lining where I hid the memory card. My fingers found the tissue. I wrapped it in. The tissue was there, but it felt wrong, too light. I opened it. It was empty. For a second I could not breathe. That card had been proof. It had been the only thing that felt real. Without it, I had nothing but my word, and he had already used my name like a weapon. A soft click came from above my door. The smoke alarm made a tiny sound, like a camera adjusting. I forced myself to keep working. I grabbed my wallet from the bedside table. It was not there. I checked my jacket pocket. Nothing. I checked my drawer again, shaking it like the wallet might appear under paper. My hands shook as I searched. The room felt smaller each second. The ceiling felt lower. The air felt warmer, like the flat wanted me tired and careless. I heard him in the hall. He stopped outside my room and did not enter. He spoke in a calm voice that carried just enough. "I found your wallet," he said. "It was in the wrong place." I did not answer. I stepped into the hall and saw him at the kitchen table. My wallet sat in front of him. He tapped it with one finger, slow and steady, like he had done with the lease. "You lose things when you rush," he said. "Sit." I did not sit. I walked closer, watching his hands. My wallet looked closed, but the edge was not aligned right. It had been opened and pressed shut again. I asked where he found it. He smiled a little. "In your room," he said. "I did a safety check. You left your bag open." I knew he lied. I had not left it open. He had opened it. I asked for my wallet back. He slid it across the table. I picked it up and opened it at once. My ID was there. My bank card was there. But the small paper I kept behind them was gone. It had my new email password and the storage unit address. I had written it by hand because I did not trust my phone. My mouth went dry. I looked up at him. He watched me like he watched the smoke alarm. Then he leaned back in his chair and spoke in a slow, even voice that sounded practiced. "You were planning something," he said. "You should have asked permission." I held my wallet tight and tried to think. Maya and Eli waited in the van. The storage unit waited. My escape waited on a paper that had just vanished. He stood and walked past me toward my room, not hurried, not tense. At my door he paused and looked back. "If you cannot find what you need," he said, "you cannot leave." Then he stepped into my room and closed the door behind him. He stayed in my room with the door closed. I heard drawers slide. I heard my closet door move. He touched my things like he owned them. I stood in the hall and kept my breathing quiet. I watched the kitchen table. My wallet stayed there like bait. I did not go back into my room. I moved the other way. His door was across the hall. I had never been inside it since he became my landlord. He always kept it shut. He always said it was private. Now it stood unlocked because he thought I would stay frozen outside my own room. I pushed it open with 2 fingers. The smell inside was cleaner than the rest of the flat. It smelled like air spray over something old. His room felt staged. The bed was made too tight. The desk was bare except for one laptop stand and a closed black binder. A small camera sat on a shelf facing the door like it waited for me. I stepped in anyway. My skin crawled, but I kept moving. On the wall beside the desk there was a calendar with names and times written in neat blocks. My name appeared again and again, not as a person, as a task. Wake check, quiet hours test, door test, phone access. I opened the black binder. The first page said tenant behavior log. Under it were dates and notes. He wrote about me like I was an animal he trained. He wrote when I left, when I returned, who I spoke to in the hallway, when I used the bathroom, when I cried. I read that line twice. It said he cried at 1:14 a.m. Good. That made him easier. My throat tightened. I turned the page. There were printed screenshots of messages sent from my accounts. Beside each screenshot he had written a short note. Goal achieved. Friend removed. Work pressure added. He had planned my isolation like a schedule. I turned another page and found a section called Scripts. Under it were sentences I knew too well. You are not on the lease anymore. You are not allowed inside. If you make me feel unsafe in my own home, they will believe me. Each line had a check mark beside it. I heard a faint sound from my room across the hall, a soft thud. He moved something heavy. I kept reading faster. Behind the scripts were bank papers, not just his, mine. My name sat on forms I had never filled out. There was a claim for housing support listing me as a lodger. The money went to his account. There was an insurance policy on the flat with a section marked occupant at risk. My name was printed there too. Another page showed a personal loan application using my details. The contact number on it was not mine. It was his. I understood then why he needed me trapped and quiet. He did not just want control. He needed a steady story with a person inside it. He needed me present, alive, and isolated so no one questioned the papers. I was not a roommate. I was proof. My hands shook as I opened the desk drawer. Inside was a small box with memory cards lined up like pills. Each one had a date. I pulled one out at random and saw a label. Bedroom feed backup. I grabbed it. I grabbed 3 more. Then I found a USB drive. It had my name written on it in his neat handwriting. I did not plug it in. I did not want to leave a trace on his computer. I took photos of the binder pages with my laptop camera, holding them flat and close. I took photos of the bank papers. I took photos of the memory cards with their labels. I sent everything to my new email draft and saved it without sending. Then I set a message to go out the moment my laptop connected to any network outside this flat. I wrote the subject line in simple words. Proof. Do not come here. Call police. I added Meyer and Eli. I added my boss. I added the local police contact address I found online at the cafe. I attached every photo. I heard my bedroom door open. I heard him step into the hall. I did not have time to think. I pulled the binder back into place. I closed the drawer. I left his room exactly as I found it. I moved into the hall and shut his door with a soft click. He stood outside my room holding my backpack. He had unzipped it. His fingers pinched the torn tissue where the memory card had been. He looked at me and spoke like he finished a line he started days ago. You went into my room, he said. That meant you chose the hard way. My laptop sat in my bag against my side. The message waited like a held breath, ready to leave the moment I stepped outside. And I stepped toward the front door. I walked to the front door with my laptop pressed against my ribs. He followed close behind me with my backpack in his hand. I did not try to take it. I did not argue. I just opened the door and stepped into the hallway. The building air felt colder. My laptop found a signal at once. I felt a small vibration through the bag like a heartbeat. The drafts I saved sent themselves out into the world. Proof went to Maya and Eli. It went to my boss. It went to the police contact address. It went to an abuse support inbox I found earlier because I did not know who would listen first. He grabbed my elbow in the hallway, not hard enough to bruise, hard enough to guide. His voice stayed low. "You are not allowed to leave," he said. I pulled my arm away and kept walking. I did not look back. I went down the stairs fast. The front entrance door still sat loose in its frame. It tapped once as I pushed through. The van waited down the block. Maya stood near the back doors with her phone raised, recording. Eli watched the street like he expected someone to run at us. When they saw me, they opened the van. I climbed in and shut the door. We did not carry furniture. We carried only what mattered: clothes, documents, my laptop, my wallet, a few small things he could not replace. We moved in short trips, 2 bags at a time, like we were stealing from a dangerous house. I kept my face calm each time I entered the building. I kept my steps steady. I did not speak in the hall. I felt eyes on me anyway. The smoke alarm lens watched my door. The camera in his room watched the hallway. He had planted sight everywhere, but he had not planted hands on the street. On the 3rd trip, my phone lit up. It was my old number. I had no service on it, but it still connected to Wi-Fi when it could. A message popped up from him. "You took my property." Then another. "You broke into my room." Then a photo. It showed me in the hallway holding a bag. The angle came from above, from the smoke alarm. My stomach flipped. He had sent it to prove he still watched me even as I left. I did not reply. I saved it. The storage unit was small and plain. The air inside smelled like metal and dust. Maya and Eli helped me stack my bags and close the lock. When the door rolled down, the sound felt final. My hands shook on the latch like my body did not believe it yet. Outside, Maya checked her phone and went pale. She showed me her screen. My email had reached her. She had opened the photos. She whispered that she already sent them to herself and her sister. Eli said he forwarded them too. My boss had replied with one line: "Do you need police right now?" My own inbox filled with automatic replies. One from the police website. One from the bank fraud team. One from the housing office. It was not justice yet, but it was a net closing. I did not go back to the flat again. I did not give him a chance to lock me out a second time. I had one small room lined up for the night through a friend of Maya. It was far enough that the streets changed and the buildings felt unfamiliar. When I arrived, I cleaned the space I borrowed like I was already leaving it. I wiped every surface I touched. I set my bag in one corner. I kept the window closed. I listened to every sound in the hall outside. My old number kept lighting up on my laptop through the chat app. Call after call. Message after message. "I can fix this. Come back and we talk. You made me do this." Then the rehearsed line came again, typed this time. "If you make me feel unsafe in my own home, I will show people what you are." I opened my new email and sent one more message, timed and precise. I sent the binder photos and the bank papers to his workplace general inbox. I sent them to the building management address. I scheduled a copy to go to him in 10 minutes, so he would know it was not a bluff and not a panic. I sat on the bed and waited for the 10 minutes to pass. My ears strained for footsteps that were not there. The silence felt too loud, like it waited with me. When the time hit, my laptop showed the sent confirmation. At once my old number rang again, then it stopped. A new message arrived. "I am glad you found a new place." Under that line was a photo. It showed the door of the room I sat in, taken from the hallway outside with my shadow under it. I stared at the photo of my door until my eyes hurt. The picture had been taken from close range, straight on, like he stood one step away. The time stamp matched the minute my scheduled email reached him. He had read it, then he had come here. I did not open the door. I did not look through the peephole. I backed away and kept my voice steady as I called the police from Maya's phone. I told them a person who had secretly filmed me had followed me to a new address. I told them I had proof of stalking and fraud. I sent the hallway photo to the officer email address that had replied earlier. While I waited, I listened. I heard slow movement outside, then nothing. No footsteps leaving, no door closing. It sounded like someone stood still and waited for fear to push me into a mistake. When the police arrived, 2 officers stood in the hallway. They asked me to open the door. I opened it with them right there. The hallway was empty. The air smelled clean. There was no sign of him, but the officer looked down and found a thin strip of clear tape stuck low on the frame, right where a door camera could be mounted and removed fast. He peeled it off and put it in a bag. I gave them everything: the photo from the smoke alarm angle, the messages sent from my number while my phone was dead, the behavior log pages, the bank forms with my name, the scripts with check marks, the labeled memory cards I had taken from his drawer. I told them he called it safety. I told them he said he had a feed. The older officer did not react much, but his eyes changed as he read the words he cried at 1:14 a.m. Good. He asked if I wanted an emergency protection order. I said yes. That night I did not sleep. I sat with my back against the wall and listened for any sound outside. Every small noise made my skin tighten. I kept the lights on because darkness felt like his favorite place. In the morning, my boss called me and told me to take leave. He said my work account had received strange emails from my address. He said the company security team now had the files I sent, and they had contacted the police too. He said my landlord flatmate had called the office once, asking for my schedule. He said the call had been logged and saved. Then the bank called. They told me there had been suspicious activity linked to my name. They froze the accounts connected to the loan application. They opened a fraud case. They asked if I knew the person receiving payments under my housing support claim. I said I did, and I said I had proof he set it up. By noon, my phone lit up with a new number. It was building management. They said police had contacted them about an illegal camera inside the flat. They said they had inspected the smoke alarm in my old room and found wires that did not belong. They said the locks had been changed again, this time by them. They said he would not be allowed to live with another lodger until the investigation ended. The next call came from Maya. Her voice shook. She said he had shown up at her job and tried to speak to her in private. She said her manager sent him away. She said he looked calm, but his hands shook. She said he kept repeating the same sentence like he could not switch it off. He said he was the victim. He said I was dangerous. He said he had proof. Maya said she told him the truth was already out. I returned my keys through the police station. I did not hand them to him. I put them in an evidence envelope with my name on it. The officer wrote down the serial number from the key head. He said it mattered because the lock change had been used as control. He said the pattern mattered. 2 days later, the housing office emailed me. They confirmed the claim under my name had been stopped. They asked for my statement. They told me the money paid out would be recovered. The word they used was debt. Not mine, his. That evening, a message appeared on my laptop from an unknown account. It had no name. It had one line. You still touch the smoke alarm. I closed the laptop and looked up. A new smoke alarm sat on the ceiling of this borrowed room, installed sometime after the police left. The plastic looked too white, and in the center, a pinhole caught the light.